G'day and welcome, my name's Cautious Pancake, and today I'm going to try and make what is probably the dumbest AFK base possible. We should completely break Horde Night by stopping all zombies from spawning, while at the same time, if you got bored with that, it will allow you to
spawn zombies in like a god.
Sorry about that. The concept for this is pretty simple. Zombies don't spawn on player-placed blocks. So starting with this 5x5 pad as a reference point, let's track where the zombies spawn and see what sort of base we need to build to stop them all. To do this, I've gone creative mode obviously, leaving my body back in the center point of the pad, and with Horde Night on and the zombie AI turned off, we can see where they all spawn. From there, I'm going to mark each zombie's location with this pillar block so that they will build up like little pins on a map. Assuming that you don't want to watch me do that for 20 minutes, let's talk briefly about why this is a dumb AFK base. When building AFK bases in the past, the challenge is normally in making the zombie's AI work against itself, through glitches and pathing properties. Assuming this base works, it will remove all of that, and just provide a base with no chance of zombies attacking. It's basically the land equivalent of the old bases that you could build out in the middle of the lake, back when zombies wouldn't spawn on water. So I've done almost all of Horde Night, and as you can see, most of the zombie spawns were concentrated on one side of me, which I think gives us a good picture that the zombies are spawning in basically a circle around the player. I won't keep going now, since they're starting to spawn on the other side, and we should be able to build our structure based on just one half and mirror it on the other side. First up, let's see how far out the zombie spawning starts. We go 10, 20, and 30 blocks out over here, and on the other side it looks about the same, 30 blocks away from our position. Between them you can see this kind of curved shape to the zombie spawns, sort of happening around through the middle. It's not a straight line by the looks, which is unfortunate because that's much easier to build for us. Coming out the other end, it looks like from the 30 block, we need to go to 40, 45 blocks out is where the zombies start to spawn. And on the other side from 30, 40, 45, a little bit past 45 over here, it looks like 47. So somewhere between 47 and 50 blocks is where we're going to have to build our structure. To do the build, I'm going to use the block replace tool. What we can do is just select out an area and make it cover over the entire section that we want. We might even just go out to sort of 50 blocks, 30 to 50. That'll give us some leeway just in case things are spawning a little bit unusually. And then drop it down into the ground, and we'll use the block replace tool to put in some wood frames. That just saves us from having to dig out everything and put them in. But to be fair, you don't actually have to dig down if you're trying to build this yourselves. You can actually just place the blocks on top of the terrain. I just want to keep it nice and even. So we're going to use the block replace. So that's our starting position. We're going to use a 20 block wide ring, and we're going to try and build that all the way around by just going over one block at a time and then filling it in. Once again, bring it over, replace the blocks, and repeat. Now one thing I've realized though, if we look at this, that's going sort of at a 1-to-1 ratio, and it's going to be not a ring, it's going to be just a sort of straight diamond, which isn't going to cover all of the pins at the back, particularly when we cut through. So what we might need to do instead is see if there's a bit of a different shape that we can make that will better lay out the blocks to cover over the pins where they've been distributed. So what we might do instead is try and approach where we sort of go across 2 blocks and then in 1 block, sort of a 2-to-1 ratio of our slope rather than a 1-to-1 that we started with. We'll see if that sort of covers all of the pins as we move across. We might build it out to start with it from this side and then move over to the other side to see if it repeats over there. Okay, I'm building out the other side now, and as you can see already, the 2-to-1 ratio is not going to cover all of the pins. Since there's a bit of sort of empty space at the beginning, and most of the problem areas is right out in the middle where the 2 sides or the 2 diagonals meet up, maybe we just need to move it out a little bit first. So we might come out 4 blocks to start with, then start our 2-to-1 ratio from there. As you can see, that runs straight into that block, so that's kind of going to cover it. And the same over here. It's gotten around those pins, so this one's looking a bit more promising. Just covers those pins. Same again. Alright, that looks pretty good. So if we pick these back up again, let's repeat that on the other side. Coming in from the other side, it's looking pretty good so far, covering all the pins, and then we just need to make it sort of meet up nicely in the middle. Something like that. Beautiful. All right, so that looks like an approach. 4 off the 50th block, and then start a 2-to-1 ratio from there. On the inside, let's just start with maybe a 2-to-1 again here, and we'll see what that looks like. Go out 2, and just keep doing that all the way through. And we'll see where they meet up, and whether it covers all the pins on the inside of the circle. Oh, it looks like it might just do it. A little bit of a odd shape there, but we can fix that up. So there we go. Going on a 2-to-1 ratio for the most of the slope, looks like it will cover pretty much all of the pins, at least from what we saw in that first Horde Night. Okay, there we go. That first quarter of a circle is done. 20 blocks wide from the 30th to the 50th block, and a 2-to-1 slope ratio until it meets in the middle, other than the outer edge, which has a 4 block to start, then the 2-to-1 ratio from there. After doing that all the way around the circle, here's how it looks. Covering pretty much all of the pins. So I think for the most part, this is going to do pretty well. There's a couple of pins on the outside that might result in spawn areas, but I think it's worth having a look at. So let's get in and turn on a Horde Night. We're still standing right in the middle. So let's have a look and see whether this stops all of the zombies, or whether there's a few edge cases where the zombies are still going to spawn. There we go. There's our first one. Oh, and a second one straight away. As you can see, we've still got the AI off, so we can see where the zombies are going to spawn. Another one over here. Oh, some on the inside as well. 2 there. So they're definitely spawning just on the edges. We haven't quite gone far enough on the diagonals, and haven't quite brought it in far enough on the inside of the circle. Okay, so as you can see, quite a number of them all clustered around here. I think they're even spawning and pushing each other out to the side. That's why they're so tightly packed in there. So we just need to cover off a few extra blocks on the inside. Most of the rest of the diagonal on the inside is fine. Just that right on the 90-degree axes that we need to worry about. And this outer diagonal has a lot of extra blocks. Mostly just one to the side. A couple of spots where there's 2 to the side, as in 2 blocks away from the ring that we built, where we're going to have to add some extra pins and then add some extra blocks to cover that off. You can see that there's nothing at the axis on the outer edge here. It's just on the diagonal once we get in a little bit, so it's not that 2-to-1 ratio has come in a little bit too fast. We need to just fatten out the circle on the outside. I won't thin it out on the inside just because that's already working, but I think that should do the trick. So I'll place a few more pins and we'll come back and have a look afterwards. Okay, so let's end Horde Night. I'm not going to create pins here on the inside of the circle just because they're localized to such a small area, but I think if we basically come in 2 blocks and cover off this entire section just on the front here. Now I'm going to grab some wood frames, if I could grab those there, and we'll use these just to show the different areas that we're building in addition to the existing ones. So let's just knock these out and we'll drill out this section. We'll go 2 blocks out and just fill this entire area with wood blocks. There we go. Just like that. That should cover off all of those zombies that were spawning just on the inside of that circle. And we can repeat that for each of the different sides. Looks like that when we're done. From there, we then have a look at these diagonal sections where we just need to fatten it out a bit. You can see that sort of for the first 3 or 4 points, it's okay. But from there, we just need to fatten out by 1 or 2 all the way around. Same over there on the other side. So let's just dig them out. So give us a sec and we'll do that. Okay, there's our fattened out circle with wood blocks just around the edges, making those diagonals a little bit wider. And if that spawn from the last sort of run was any indication of how they're going to go, you can see we've covered up those pin locations with the wood blocks now. That should stop all the zombies spawning and we should be good to go. So let's test that. Straight into Horde Night. How are we looking? Pretty good so far. I don't see any zombies spawning. Have we done it? No. Got 2 zombies here, so we haven't quite gone far enough with our fattening out of the circle. Need to just go that little bit further. Can pop a couple of pins in just for keeping track. Is that the only 2, or is there more? Where there's 2, there's usually going to be more, because we should have done this fairly symmetrical. Got another spider sneaking in there. Yeah, there we go. As we get rid of them, or as the spawn algorithm hunts through and looks for spawn locations, they're just going to keep coming up. So it looks like we just need to go a little bit fatter on the base build. So let's do that and see if we can improve things a little bit more. Okay, here we are, a much more complete wood section now, all the way around those diagonals, just leaving the flat points on the axis from being covered. Might have missed a couple here. Let's just add those in, make it look a little bit more symmetrical. There we go. So again, it's mostly still around that 2:1 ratio, but just a little bit fatter on the diagonals on the outside of the circle to hopefully stop the last few zombies from spawning. Let's jump back into Horde Night and see if it's true. One zombie spawned right at the beginning of Horde Night. Where'd he go? There, again, just that one little corner spot where we just need to add that one little extra block. And that'll take care of it. So we're really, really close now. It's just sort of out by one here and there, which is going to be a little tricky to deal with, but I've got an idea for that. So before we get to that, let's look at our positioning. So far we've been standing right in the middle, but what's going to happen if we move over to the side? 2 blocks over to the right, where we're standing now, is also going to change where the zombies spawn, since it seems to be centered around our location. On the inside of the circle, it's going to come in 2 blocks and start spawning in that blank space there. And on the far side of the circle, it's going to push out 2 blocks on the outside as well, all through the diagonals on both sides of the axis as well. So to prove that, let's jump into Horde Night and just check that that's actually what happens. Again, with the AI turned off, just so that we can see where they start rather than having them run straight in at us immediately. You can see that straight away they're starting to spawn on the outside of the circle where they weren't before, while we were standing right in the middle. I think that pretty much proves what the theory was, and that they're definitely spawning based on our location. And if we want to have a 5x5 area that we can move around on during Horde Night, we're going to have to expand the circle again. 2 blocks out of middle will mean we need to come out 2 blocks from each edge, on the outside going out 2 blocks, and on the inside coming in 2 blocks. Okay, here's what it looks like. So I've added brick this time, just again to add a different variation on which blocks were which wave of the modification. But instead of coming out 2 blocks, what I've actually done is come out 3 all the way around the circle and gone in 3 on the inside of the circle. That way, for all those little out by 1 issues that we were having, that should take care of all of them by going 1 block further than we thought we needed with the base already. So what this should mean now is that we can go straight into Horde Night, and we should be able to walk anywhere within the 5x5 area on this little pad, and no zombies should spawn. I've turned AI off now, so when they do spawn, they're going to come running straight for us like a normal Horde Night. And we should be able to just walk around this pad, have a mosey around, keep an eye out in case we saw anything. I think that was just me freaking out a shadow. So I think this is looking pretty good. What do you reckon? All happy days? This is stopping the zombies spawning. What we might need to do next though, see whether that out by 1 gives us an extra block to play with. So we should be able to almost just walk around the edge here. We might get 1 or 2 zombies spawning if we've missed something right on one of the edges. But nothing so far, so let's creep out a little bit further. 2 or 3 blocks away now. Ah, there we go. So yes, it does prove that if you get a little bit off your concrete pad, that the zombies will spawn. But we can jump back up on the pad, take care of them, and then jump back off again. There we go. Once we get off the pad, zombies will come in, run back onto the pad, and take care of them. So this is where it begins to move into the territory of controlling the Horde Night and how many zombies you want to spawn by just how far you move off the pad and how long you stay off the pad. As soon as you've got enough zombies that you want to take on and fight, jump back onto the pad, come back into the area where the zombies won't spawn, and you stop them from coming. Now, if you don't just want to have a little 5x5 pad, you could go a little bit more interesting and build yourself a little base. Here I've made a mini castle turret, very, very basic, just to give a bit of a concept. Run up, stand up on top. Got a little fence here to stop us going outside the 5x5 area accidentally. We can still do our little crafting base on top, and in theory we don't have to worry about cop spit or anything because they're not going to spawn. And we've got a little elevated platform right in the middle just so that we can come up top and see what's going on. Now, one other interesting thing that we might need to consider is whether or not the spawn distance is just based on horizontal distance or whether height also comes into it. To do that, I'm going to build a ladder up to nowhere. And what that should show is that if we turn on Horde Night again, standing here at the top of the base, we shouldn't get any spawns. But if we come up to the top of the ladder, that adds diagonal distance. And if the distance calculation for zombie spawn takes the height into account, then we're going to start to see some extra spawns. But if it only goes on horizontal distance from the player, then it shouldn't change any of the calculations, and we should be fine no matter how tall you want to make this base in the middle of this section. Given that we haven't had any zombie spawns so far, I'm going to say that that's based purely on horizontal distance, so you can build a tall base tower of any height within this section, and you won't get any zombie spawns, as long as you stay within that 5x5 grid. If we jump up over onto the wall and just get outside the 5x5, you will get the occasional spawn. There we go. Which you can then come down and fight. Down below, we've still got the 5x5 area as well that we're staying within. And if we come outside, that's when we're going to start getting more zombies again. Depending on which direction they're coming from, I don't know where they're going to go. There they come. So we can then walk back inside. I think we've spawned a few this time. So you can fight them down below. Now if you don't like the idea of coming down below and wandering outside the base to fight them, the other approach of course would be to build a horde base into your non-combat AFK base. If you come outside and start to put a little bit of a walkway up here, you can imagine a push base where the zombies have to run up a ramp and come get to you over here. But this allows you to sort of come outside and spawn in some small numbers of zombies. You can then run back into the 5x5 area to stop them spawning. And if you build a little cage here to fight from, they'd be able to run up top. You could fight them in a safe area just by controlling where you stand, control the number of zombies. You can even stay out of their way just by sitting on the ladder up here. So there you go. What I consider to be one of the dumbest AFK bases I've ever built, but it's also super effective at both stopping all the zombies from spawning, which of course you could just do by turning off Horde Night if that was what you were into, but it also allows you to safely control the number of zombies that you get during the horde by positioning yourself within the area that will stop the zombies from spawning, or outside if you want more zombies to come and fight you. In terms of how to build the circle, what you'll need to do is from your 5x5 pad, come out 10, 25 blocks and start your circle. That'll need to also go about 5 or 6 blocks wide and then start the 2:1 ratio. And from there, it's going to go to 30, 40, 54, 53 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 53 blocks out from your center position and start building your circle out from there. So if you've enjoyed this video, please leave it a like and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more dumb bases like this one. Thanks to my awesome supporters on Patreon. Thanks to you for watching this video. And as always, happy building.